Well, howdy y'all. As you can tell, we're a long way from home. We're down here in Texas. This is my new downcountry bike, and we're here to check out Guerrilla Gravity's new carbon fiber frames, the Smash and the Trail Pistol. Now these things, they're selling for $2,440 with the RockShox rear shock. Now that's about $1,000 less than what we're used to seeing. So let's go answer some questions, find out how they're able to do that. Got to restart my downcountry bike right here. So Will, you guys are building carbon fiber frames. You're building them in Colorado in your own facility, and the price is pretty impressive. I think with a shock, it was $2,440 to start off with for a carbon fiber frame. Now it sounds like there's two parts to this story. One is the manufacturing, one is the material.
Yep. So essentially, Revved Carbon technology combines a new material that's over 300% more impact resistant than traditional carbon fiber. And we've combined that with our own manufacturing method, which we've developed from the ground up. It's patent pending, and it essentially allows us to create these frames in a time that was previously not possible with traditional carbon.
Okay. So it sounds like what you're saying is one of the reasons for the frame being, you know, it's like $1,000 or more less expensive than some things that come out of Asia. A big reason for that is simply the time. You guys are able to do this more efficient, it sounds like?
Correct. Yeah, when we originally started looking into manufacturing out of carbon, when we decided that it was an avenue we wanted to go down, we knew that we had to find a better way. You know, we sort of believed in our gut that it could be done better. You know, there's just a ridiculous amount of labor time that goes into these. And so that was a huge requirement when we first started looking, and essentially we didn't stop until we found that, because not only do we want to build tough, durable frames, we're not here to make mountain biking more expensive. So creating a more efficient way was the only avenue to the price points that we wanted to be at. Okay,
so I guess my next question would be, a standard carbon frame out of Asia, if there is such a thing, is, I mean, how long does that take to make? Roughly, compared to what you guys are doing?
So we've heard ranges of anywhere from 24 to 40 hours of labor time that goes into a traditional carbon frame, whereas we're able to get that number down to about 8 hours.
Let's talk about the material first. Is this carbon something that isn't being used by other people? Like, you guys are making some pretty big claims. In your PR stuff there, it says 300% stronger when it comes to impacts.
Yeah, it's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
So ultimately it comes down to the type of resin that we're using. We still use continuous fibers, so the stiffness and the weight advantage that you get out of carbon is still there, but the resin is just a huge step forward. So, you know, you're starting to see aerospace companies use this, most notably in Boeing's new 787. They're using a similar material for a lot of the structural components there.
So that leads me to the next question, which is Guerrilla Gravity. You know, when we start talking about aerospace stuff that comes from Boeing and things like that, I think of, you know, maybe larger companies doing this first. You guys are not, relatively speaking, you're not a huge company. So how the hell did you end up using this material that sounds like offers some advantages?
One is that we're not a big company currently. So we're able to move quickly, we're able to be lean, we're able to be efficient. And we also don't exist on the same supply chain as the rest of the industry. So the fact that we manufacture ourselves was a huge advantage when it came to making the tooling, knowing what our capabilities are, not being limited by another factory's tooling or relying on them to innovate the new material. So really our size was a big advantage here.
This material, it sounds like it's the resin, it's not the carbon that you're using?
Yeah, so the carbon fiber is, those continuous long strand fibers are going to be pretty much what the traditional carbon uses.
Okay, but it's the actual resin that is what gives it its strength.
That's correct.
So this material, is this stuff exclusive to you guys? Are we gonna see this on other bikes 2 years from now or a year from now? Are we gonna see everybody saying their frames are 300% stronger?
You know, I mean, it's hard to predict the future, so we can't say with certainty. The manufacturing method that we developed for this material is something special, and without that, they would have to find a different way. As we mentioned, it is patent pending. And essentially what we were able to do was find the material, but creating a hollow structural unit out of that material didn't exist, and we had to develop that.
Okay.
So they would have to figure out something similar.
All carbon mountain bike frames, they're a hollow structure. What's different about this material that you couldn't build it in that same way? Why do you need to use the method that you're talking about?
Well, that's really where a lot of those efficiencies come from.
Okay.
So, you know, with this material, we're able to use automated fiber placement to reduce the labor time by about 80% compared to traditional carbon fiber. So, you know, when we look at manufacturing in the US, it's really about finding a new, innovative way in order to be competitive with the labor rates of overseas manufacturing.
How much of the process is automated? Like all carbon frames are handmade,
Sure.
but it sounds like this one is less handmade.
It just requires significantly less labor. So if you compare it to our aluminum frames, for example, the labor time is actually quite similar.
Okay.
So it's really compared to traditional carbon fiber that we're able to save so much labor time, because not only is it horribly inefficient, it creates quality inconsistencies because you're laying hundreds of individual plies by hand, and it's actually a very tedious, difficult process. And that introduces a lot of opportunity for human error during the layout process, where we don't have that.
So I'm picturing in your guys' factory all these robot arms moving things, picking things up and moving it around, and is that way out of line, or?
I think it's probably a lot more low tech than you think. It's not, it's not like the Jetsons robot. It probably looks a lot more like a machine. So
these frames, they take way less time to make. You said about 8 hours compared to like 24 to 48 hours. Where is that time saved?
So a lot of it's during the layout process.
Okay.
And then we use a fusing method, which is much faster. So as you mentioned, the FrameMaker 3000 is the machine that does the fusing. So there we're able to reduce cycle times from approximately 2 to 4 hours, depending on the mold material that's used in the traditional method, down to about a half hour. And after those frames get out of the FrameMaker 3000, significantly less finishing work is needed. So here, because the frames are nearly perfect, as soon as they pop out of the mold, it actually requires 90% less labor there.
Along with that is that you're cooking them at a much higher temperature as well too.
Correct.
Why? How?
So this resin is much more temperature stable. So we do fuse at a very high temperature, which means that we can powder coat, because powder coating takes place at a higher temperature, whereas traditional carbon frames are far less heat stable. So you can't powder coat at standard temperatures. You'd have to use some sort of low temp powder, which isn't going to be as durable.
Okay. So I'm hearing 300% stronger, which is a huge number in an industry that often loses its mind over 3 or 5%. I'm hearing less time to make, and the MSRP is, somewhere around $1,000 less than some of these other frames. Is the drawback weight? Are these things way heavier because they're way stronger? Are riders going to end up on frames that are multiple pounds heavier than your previous aluminum ones, or are they lighter?
They are competitive. So the size 3, which is, I'm sure we'll get into the sizing differences a little bit. So the size 3 is going to be comparable to a lot of size larges that are out there. And we're looking at 6.5 pounds for a frame weight. Most carbon frames for this intended use are going to be in the 6-pound range, but most of those weights are listed in the size small. So once we make those smaller sizes, they'll be right in line. So frame weights are perfectly competitive.
Okay. So you guys were known for hand-welded aluminum frames that come right out of your factory in Colorado, and I think that's something that appeals to a lot of people, that like grittiness, the hands have touched it. Is there any concern on your part that, it sounds like machines are doing a lot more of the work now. Is there any concern on your part that you might be losing some of that handmade feel that people like so much?
Well, at the end of the day, these are still handmade. They're still the same amount of labor that's going into them, or a very similar amount of labor that's going into them. And they're still made in-house by the same people. We're actually hiring additional people to help with this process. And at the end of the day, our mission is to make mountain biking more awesome and to find new and better ways to do things. And this, when we found it, was such a great opportunity to really progress everything forward for the riders, you know, where carbon fiber is no longer a badge of exclusivity, but you know, a new right for everyone who wants to ride harder on a very well-developed, strong, durable frame.
We rode the Smash and we rode a trail pistol. Both of them use the same front triangle.
Correct.
Can you tell me what's going on there and how you're able to do that?
Yep. So since we developed this new technology and frame material from the ground up, we were really able to fully flesh out what we call our modular frame platform. It made sense at the time. So essentially, you have a unified front triangle. So it's the same across all models, and you're able to switch between models with a seat stay kit. So each model will use its own unique seat stay kit as well as a different shock size. And with that, and the Geo Adjust headset, which allows you to adjust the reach and the wheelbase of your frame by 10 millimeters, you really have an incredibly wide range of what we consider tuning options between the 4 different models, the 227.5 and the 229, which we rode this weekend.
Now, and that also gives you, let me see if I can remember all these travel numbers, 120, 130, 145, 155, and 165. So you have one front triangle that can go from 120 to 165, it sounds like.
Yep.
Just by changing the seat stays and on some models, the shocks.
Correct. Well, they each have an individual shock that they use.
So
there's a few hacks in there. There's going to be a lot of people that play around with the setups.
And you guys are actually encouraging that too, aren't you?
To an extent,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think that there will be some people who go off the deep end, but I think it's kind of this whole new freedom to set up your bike in unique ways, and you know, there's a lot of bike nerdery out there, and it creates a new opportunity to really play around with different kits and setups and really dial in your bike for your riding style and local terrain.
So theoretically, I could, let's say I wanted to make the ultimate downcountry bike. I could put a 27.5-inch wheel on the back, 29 on the front.
Good.
I could run 130 on the back if I wanted, and 160 on the front, or 120, 130. You can mix and match and do, you know, whatever you like within reason.
Yep.
So you guys are using a new type of carbon, it sounds like, or a new type of resin at least. You guys are doing a pretty special automated layup process, largely automated layup process. This sounds like quite the investment. How long ago did this start?
Well, we first started looking for a better way to manufacture carbon frames about 3 years ago. We looked under a ton of rocks, asked a lot of questions, found plenty of dead ends, until we identified the new material. Then we had to develop the manufacturing method. And then essentially once we got the patent filed is when we really got to work on building the whole manufacturing infrastructure and everything like that. So it was about 18 months ago that everything like really started full bore, and you know, certainly wasn't free. We did get a grant from the state of Colorado. It was an advanced manufacturing grant, and we were the first outdoor rec company to be awarded that grant. So typically it had been bioscience, aerospace, renewable energy, but it really kind of pushed them to expand what they consider advanced manufacturing, because really what that is finding innovative ways to make things. And there was something unique really for the outdoor rec industry as a whole. So that funding really allowed us to further accelerate it.
From the beginning, you guys have been doing aluminum frames, and that's what you were known for. Guerrilla Gravity was known for aluminum frames that were sturdy, reasonably priced. Was there any hesitation on your part to leave aluminum and go to carbon?
So we've always thought about it as we want to build durable, tough frames, and we want to manufacture them in-house in Colorado. We never consider ourselves tied to aluminum or tied to certain materials.
Right. So the other thing I want to hit on too is the sizing. You guys aren't doing traditional small, medium, large sizing, and really those words are almost useless nowadays with the reach numbers being everywhere. Instead, you guys are doing size 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yep.
What is this all about?
So we didn't want people to necessarily come in with a preconceived notion of I ride a large or I ride a medium, because not only are you able to adjust the frame size with the Geo Adjust headset, it's just kind of a new way to thinking about it. So we do have a online sizing tool, so you can go in and input your height and input if you're a a full throttle rider or you prefer all around, and it will make a sizing recommendation, whether you should be on size 1, 2, 3, or 4, what headset position you should be in, as well as the stem length that we recommend. And it'll give you the geo chart with reach numbers and that sort of thing for that particular configuration. So if someone does want to choose based on reach size, they certainly can, or they can go with our recommendation.
All right. When are these things going to be available?
Well, the size 3, which is going to be the most popular size, will be available right at launch. So because we manufacture in a just-in-time method, we don't have to rely on containers of these showing up all at once. So we're able to continually roll them out. So it'll be about a 4 to 6 week lead time initially for the size 3 once you place your order. And then the size 2 will be next. We're hoping for about 4 to 6 weeks after launch for that. And then followed by the size 1, then the size 4, hopefully having everything by about May. And to get in line for those, there is a pre-order, so you can get in the queue for a refundable $295 deposit and be one of the first to get one of the new sizes.
Okay. Pricing wise, where do we start? Where do we go?
Well, the frame sets start at $21.95 without a shock, because we foresee a lot of people just wanting to swap over their current setup. The complete bikes start at $36.95 for our Ride 2. Then there's the Ride 1, which is going to be carbon bar, carbon crank, DT 1501, GX Eagle, and that's going to be $45.95. And then if you just want all the hot shit, the race builds, $59.95, comes with DT Swiss XMC 1200s, comes with a bike yoke revive post, full X01, including the cassette.
You know, a few months ago, I tested a bike and I want to say the frame was around 6,000 American dollars.
If I was a rider looking for a new bike, getting into the sport, making a reasonable wage, I'd want to be able to ride something that's cool, that's not gonna make me go broke.
So warranty wise, are we looking at a 2-year warranty? Is it lifetime warranty? What are you guys doing for that?
So we take a unique approach to that. We have what's called our lifetime frame guarantee. And it's sort of a way to say that as long as you own one of our bikes, we're gonna take care of you. So we build our company on the back of stoked riders. But it's also a way to recognize that there's such a wide range of scenarios that can occur with a bike.
Like what if I got a frame, for example? What if I traded my PlayStation 2 and an old Game Boy and a whole bunch of money for a couple-year-old carbon frame a few years down the road, and then something bad happens to it?
Well, we're glad that you're riding one of our bikes, and we'll probably hook you up on something discounted that's new to replace something that may have happened.
The bike has worked well for the 2 days that I've been here, and I look forward to riding one up north in Canada.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming down, and can't wait to get these out in the world.
Well, folks, there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. The answer lies in new manufacturing methods, new technology that, surprisingly enough, actually costs less than what we're used to, and a lot of hard work and ingenuity. Now, do you think this is the future of carbon fiber manufacturing? You let us know down in the comments. In the meantime, I got a long pony ride back to Canada.